So Manchester United beat Villarreal 2-0 away in the Champions League last night. We are going to look exactly how we won the game, the tactics that we used, and who stood out for Manchester United as we qualify for the Champions League knockout stages. Right, I'm joined by Abdul. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right. I was much better after just getting that game out of the way. It just felt like relief in it.
Clean sheet as well. I know it's obviously we weren't the most defensively
I'm surprised.
stable, but
Forget a clean sheet. I'm surprised we kept a clean sheet by half time.
Yeah, I know.
Just in general, just like we seem to just concede. It seems to be the rhythm in it. We concede within 20, 30 minutes minimum.
I think it was Andy Mitten who was saying yesterday, the reason we got that game delayed is so we couldn't concede in the first few minutes. Because obviously at the start the ref was getting his batteries changed. We're going to be looking through some of the key, what you deemed to be the key players last night. Obviously United getting the win. Let's start from the back and work our way forward. We're looking at Lindelof, at Fred, at Sancho, and some of the overall tactics as well. Let's start with Lindelof. What impressed you about Victor Lindelof last night?
I thought he's been good throughout the season.
Yeah.
Considering how poor we've been defensively, he's probably been our most consistent defender. I think from that Leeds game onwards, and Varane, when he's played, we seem to be a lot better, of course.
Yeah.
But aerially, just dealt with everything yesterday.
Yeah.
He didn't really look. There's a couple issues that we've always got with Victor Lindelof is he can get bullied. If you've got a big man on him, they can knock it down. I know they were trying to play in and around us, but his recovery was really good. I felt Danjuma, for me, I've watched quite a bit of him this season, is one of the most difficult players to defend against. I think he's a fantastic player. We've seen him at Old Trafford as well against Diogo Dalot. And I thought he was brilliant, making sure that when Wan-Bissaka's not in that position, recovering, or when Tellez wasn't and Danjuma was switching between the flanks. So it was just the best of Victor Lindelof. And again, we might not even seen the best Victor Lindelof yet. You know, he's still getting to that age where he's reaching his peak. So I don't know if you'll agree with me, but with Varane coming into the team and with Maguire's performances of recent time, I personally would go with the Victor Lindelof-Varane partnership. Yeah. I feel like they're both capable enough to deal with things in the air. I know, like I said, Lindelof at times it can be a bit difficult, but most teams now try to play in and around us. That's our biggest issue. I feel we just feel a lot more confident playing out the back currently with Victor Lindelof. I'm not saying Harry Maguire is awful, but
no,
he's on really bad form. Really bad form, and I think it doesn't help.
On Maguire yesterday, I thought he kind of went under the radar, which is what he needed, because he's been such a sort of like focal point of he's made that mistake. Yeah. Last night wasn't his best game, but I thought there were no sort of big obvious mistakes. He can kind of maybe just take a breath and hopefully get back. But as you see there, Lindelof, we mentioned that his weakness can be in the air. 3 out of 3 aerial duels won. They're not the biggest side, Villarreal, but I thought he was excellent. And in this run we've had, he's not really been criticised, and I think quite rightly, because he's not stood out as being poor, especially when you've got the captain next to him. Who's
fantastic assists, I think, this season as well. The Bruno Fernandes one, the Marcus Rashford one against Leicester, with both feet. You know, he had the left-footed one, right-footed one. For me, a very good ball-playing centre-back. Yeah. Like, he can find that space in behind defences and is alert to pick up the runs, which frustratingly for the likes of Marcus Rashford don't get picked up enough. Yeah. I thought Maguire actually tried a couple passes in behind Villarreal's defence yesterday, which was good. And you spoke about him going under the radar, and that's exactly what it was with Maguire. One of the issues, diving into the tactical part of it in the defensive sense, was I've seen Maguire seems to be sort of cornered into these areas of the pitch every time because of the way Man United play. And I get sometimes it's a bit hard for him to get going on the ball. And when he gets going, we've seen how good he was in his first season for me. Like, when he can take a player or two and then break the line and progress the ball. I feel like with our current, the way that we're less aggressive under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer compared to, for example, last night, what we'd seen, you know, we had Fred, who we were going to get onto, pushing further up the pitch. It just allowed us to have that step forward and give Maguire a bit more time on the ball as well. And teams don't necessarily have to target him, because it seems to be that left side where giving Maguire, he's got to hook it away, and teams just press us there so quickly.
Sometimes, because I think Lindelof is a better passer of the ball, but I think Maguire is a better carrier of the ball.
I agree, yeah.
And I think sometimes because of that, he's such a focal point when we're playing out from the back that, like you said, when the tactics aren't there, or when there isn't an obvious pass on, or when we don't have a well-established way of getting out from the back, when he's being pressed, he's just being overwhelmed sometimes. I think a lot of it is his own fault. He's obviously not playing well, but I think some of it is the system that he's been forced into and the amount of responsibility that's on his shoulders to play out from the back. It's like if he hasn't got a pass on to Shaw, half the time he ain't got a pass on. Yeah. And then he has to sort of try and overcome that with a big pass or trying to dribble past someone. I think that's where you see some of his weaknesses. But yeah, Lindelof, I think he does deserve some credit because he's been a relatively sort of stable person in that back four, back five, when we've not really seen much stability at all back there. So yeah, I think definitely another good game from Lindelof. And like you said, on current form, if Varane comes back into this team, I think we have to give Varane and Lindelof a chance as our sort of starting partnership. Let's move up a little bit then. You mentioned him before, Fred. Obviously, almost always being criticised. Lindelof has sort of largely escaped it. Fred absolutely hasn't. Again, this sort of McFred moniker gets dragged in with basically if McTominay has a bad game, Fred's getting blamed for it as well because they're almost the same person in people's heads. Slightly different role for him last night, wasn't it?
Yesterday was exactly what you want from a Fred type of player, and I think he's one of the better players in the league in terms of that role that we've seen yesterday, turning the ball over.
Right.
Getting
when you say turning the ball over, you mean getting it off of them?
Getting it off of them, right. And then quickly just finding the next man. You don't need to do much on the ball, almost Kante-esque in that way. And when he pushes further up the pitch, when he's winning the ball, like we've seen in both of those instances for the goal, that is Fred. And that's what he does so well for Brazil. When people say, of course, international football is so different. There's a lot more space. And that's why on the ball stuff, I can't really take much of that, the Brazil stuff. But when I'm watching him off the ball, how aggressive he is and the license to just get straight in there and just really get on the heels of the defender or the midfielder, and then win the ball back or turn the ball back, back to the defence or progress it. It's just about him getting that first stage, then passing it on. And yesterday we seen that, straight into Ronaldo back, McTominay, no messing about, not too much on the ball. Because that's his role.
When he won that ball back for the goal, obviously United's first goal, like it was they had a free kick inside their box. The goalie gives it to the defender, but Fred's 25 yards outside of their goal. Yeah. He's not sitting back. He's not playing as a sort of a deep line player there. He's playing almost like a box to box kind of not destroyer, but sort of interrupter almost. His job is to just make it difficult for them to play. And I don't think under Solskjaer necessarily we would have seen him that high up the pitch from one of their set pieces.
It was yesterday, if you watch the main players that I've seen in terms of the pressing and really being aggressive off the ball, you had your Freds, I think Donny and McTominay at times, it felt like it was coming from the centre of the pitch. And clearly it was just about getting up there, not allowing the team to play out, not allowing the number 6 to receive and find an option. And that's even McTominay in the first half, there was a couple of instances actually where he was pushing so high up. And that's what you need to see, because the best teams win the ball in those areas and they force teams to have those problems. And you almost look at it like, when you watch like Liverpool's, they always get a lot of space on the break and stuff because you're turning teams over in uncomfortable situations and then you're gaining a lot of space to attack them in behind and you're allowing your attackers to get into good positions. Now, Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford were on the pitch for a short amount of time. I mean, only 20 minutes or so, I think. So
25, 30
25 minutes. So, to be fair, they did get a decent amount of minutes, but it just felt every best moment of the game coming at that stage because we're getting the ball in much better areas, and a team that is very difficult to attack against. They're very solid defensively, in my opinion, Villarreal. Teams really struggle with them against in La Liga. You see a lot of 0-0s, 1-1s, tight games. They've always been that type of side. We managed to get plenty of chances when those two are on the pitch.
They've had like 7 draws this season, Villarreal, because even when they're not playing well, they manage to stifle the opposition, don't they? Sorry. Talking about Bruno as well, I think, like you said, when you win the ball high up, he's such a good player at making passes quickly. But when you're making those passes quickly from the edge of your own 18-yard box, it's hard to do something. But when you're doing it 25 yards out from theirs, we see assists, we see dangerous play from him. I think that's a massive thing.
I preferred his role yesterday compared to what we've seen under Solskjaer because it was for the team rather than for Bruno Fernandes.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Like in terms of just the switches of play, there was one pass in the end where he found, was it to Marcus Rashford?
Yeah.
Just in behind, Marcus struggled to get it under control a bit. He might have been off. Yeah. There was one offside, but there was one that was onside. It was a brilliant ball.
Okay.
When we're looking at those passes, they were a lot more dangerous, but Bruno had a lot more time to see the pitch and make the decision. It didn't have to be high risk, quickly, just move it on. I get there's times where you've got to play that sort of role And I think if we bring a Pochettino in, he's someone that I'd expect to play that second striker sort of role alongside a complete forward like Cristiano Ronaldo. And we'd see Harry Kane, Dele Alli sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, what I seen yesterday was something I enjoyed watching from Bruno. He was making better decisions, a lot more meaningful passes in the place at the right time for the goal. Yeah. Just being in the right place there. So you can play him as the 8 and still manoeuvre into the area, just as we see with your Gundogans for Pep at Man City. You know, we see him starting in that 8 role, but how many times does he end up in the area? And your Donny van de Beeks, your Bruno Fernandes can do that in different styles. And it's good. I think we can manage both their minutes. And another player that can actually play that role, people will forget because he did it in the World Cup for England, is actually Jesse Lingard. Like, as mad as it sounds. But then you've got 3 players that can actually play in that area, and they've all got a different style. You got someone on the break who can carry through the thirds, especially with a lot of space, if there's ever any of that opportunity with Jesse Lingard.
Jesse's great at that.
And you got Donny, who's, when things are tight, you just need to unlock it. Him and Sancho, we've seen that connection yesterday, trying to play yourself into the area. He can do that. Bruno Fernandes, when the game's open a bit more, he can receive, whether it's in our half, in their half, and we've seen that yesterday. So what you've got to do is you've got to maximise what you're getting out of every player. And I think under Solskjaer, unfortunately, we've not seen enough of that. The best managers, you got to look at, how can I get the best out of this player? How can I get the best out of that player? Yesterday, what I seen was Sancho was more of in his Dortmund flow of bringing the ball. That's probably a good opportunity to move forward.
If we get onto Sancho there, he's actually really getting into games now, isn't he?
We're seeing what he did at Dortmund so well. It's something that I always pick up on, is him carrying from that right side into the centre and looking for combinations. He's a very selfless player. Like, he wants to involve everyone in the play. He wants to find the next pass. I absolutely love Jadon Sancho. I think this kid is like, because of the rough start he's had, and we were speaking about off camera, and he's had a lot of these at the start of the season where the fitness is not there and mentally he's not ready or whatever this season. But when he gets going, he is one of the biggest attacking threats in Europe. There's no doubt. Like, because of the start we've seen at United and everything, we almost forget how much of a world-class talent this kid, the levels he can reach. And we've seen that yesterday, like off the ball, on the ball. The run where he gives it to Bruno, receives it back. Yeah. And also receiving from deep and then carrying into the centre. He just wants players to combine with him. And under Solskjaer, we never really got to see that. Unfortunately, that was Jadon Sancho yesterday. And we've seen him play to that's the maximum level. And when I say maximum level, I mean, you're getting him to the level that he should be playing at. Marcus Rashford, we've seen, was more of a goal threat. How many times did he get him behind yesterday? 3-4 times in space of 20 minutes, like goal threat positions. And then one of them he plays back into Bruno, then on Sancho. Sancho scores. Ronaldo finds him twice as well. Ronaldo can drop deep and link play. We've seen him score himself when he done that against Atalanta. We didn't see enough of that under Solskjaer. Only on a few instances, like the Atalanta game. So it's just seeing bits of everything. Ronaldo had his poaching goal, but he also, linked the play up. But for me, Jadon Sancho, one thing I wanted to point out was, just as we pointed out with Fred and Lindelof, is focusing on those defensive stats.
I was going to say, four tackles for a winger is very good. I think the average for a fullback is only 1.8 or 2 or something. So that's a particularly high output defensive game for Jadon Sancho.
It shows his understanding of that side of the game, the aggressive pressing, the things that you really do pick up in the Bundesliga. I know the Bundesliga, people give it a lot of stick because of the space you get on the break and stuff, but tactically, the managers that come out of there, the young coaches, you see Nagelsmann, you see Jurgen Klopp, you see Tuchel, all these managers playing aggressive, turning the ball over from the front. And man, that's what Manchester United were doing. There was a lot more of a modern feel to the United side yesterday. And Jadon Sancho showed that with his defensive numbers.
So you're talking there about this sort of difference, and I thought first half United weren't great, but there were some obvious changes from Ole to Carrick. Not radical changes, it's only been 2 days. But for instance, how clear and obvious that 4-4-2 was when we were out of position. It was literally defensive line, midfield line, Ronaldo and Martial as a 2. There was some difference, wasn't there? People were saying, Carrick is just, he was coaching before, it's exactly the same. I think we saw some suggestions, if not, obviously, it wasn't a fully fledged, turnaround. Some suggestions that he isn't the same man as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
No, he's not. If he's picked the team yesterday, because we've seen 3 different ways of defending. We've seen Manchester United defending away when the goalkeeper's got it, the opposition's keeper. And that, for me, it felt like for the first time, we were cornering teams. We were putting them in difficult situations. I've not seen that for a year. There was periods under Oli, and I think especially looking at that season where we were playing almost Andreas and Jesse Lingard in that midfield, as a system and as a structure, it looked a bit better, the way we were pressing, the way we were winning the ball high up the pitch. But since then, I felt like we've not really seen it. And yesterday, we weren't just pressing the keeper. You know, when the keeper finds the next pass, there was a way where he could block that pass. We weren't getting played through too easily. So when we're looking at the different phases, you know, when their keepers got the ball, you had your Fred or McTominay's pushing high up on their midfielders, the players that are going to receive. Or McTominay was more sitting, I think, in the second half. Maybe it was instructions to sit extra deep in that position. But you had your Fred or Donny or Bruno, and especially Fred, really getting that license to push up aggressively. But once they receive the ball and start playing through into the final third, Villarreal, we're seeing us get into that flat four shape. And Jadon Sancho seemed to really understand that role.
Well, like I said, four tackles is excellent for a winger. Do you think then that Carrick is, obviously I think he'll be the manager for the Chelsea game. There's still rumours of Valverde, who's the other guy from France that's been rumoured today as well.
I think.
Garcia as well. Poch again, obviously, you know, probably the long-term target, but maybe can't get him this week. Do you think we will see a more tactically aware team even than we saw last night, but certainly than we've seen in the last few weeks against Chelsea the weekend?
Under Carrick in this period, I think we could see even a bit more work being done. You've got to look at it's only been 2 days that they worked with the players, and I did see differences. I seen, you know, so the players have already got the idea. And now that we're talking about other managers, for me, if you're looking at your Valverdes, you're looking at all these players. I'm a big advocate, and we said this off camera as well, of having a modern style, having a modern system, making sure that your younger players are getting involved. I'm not sure you Valverde at Barcelona, the way they had was Rakitic having him out wide. That's the way they set up. Pretty much when they had that flat four, Vidal sometimes playing out on the wing. What's that going to be, Bruno, Fred? Then up front, was it going to be Ronaldo, Cavani? That knock-on effect is going to have on some of the players. I'm not sure. I do rate Valverde at times in the past, but is he a completely modern manager?
And does he necessarily mesh well with presumably Poch or whoever the
how
next
it
manager
goes on
is?
to the next manager?
We've got to think
very
about
important.
the transition here as well,
Yes.
because if he's interim, you've got to think, are you teaching them one style of play to then teach them a sort of, you know, diametrically opposed style of play 6 months later?
We've already made a mistake with the planning and preparation. You don't want to keep going down this rabbit hole of just not being prepared for the next phase. And I think if the way we played yesterday continues for a certain amount of period, and then you get in your Ten Hag, you get in your Poch, your modern managers who play aggressively, who have a 4-2-3-1 style of system that this side's already worked on in the past under Solskjaer, but in a different way. Those managers, we've seen, because Poch has it at Spurs. I know he's not playing at PSG now, just in case people say that, but at Ajax, you see in Ten Hag's 4-2-3-1 as well. It's very different to Solskjaer, but players have the basics of that system.
Yeah.
I would rather then continue with Carrick in this period and then make sure we get the elite manager. I don't want to see a manager come in, have a knock-on effect on your Sancho's, Mason Greenwood's, Marcus Rashford's. I want to see my team build for the future, and I think you got to take a hit sometimes in a period of time. I understand we've got Ronaldo, we've got players that are going to need to win now, but I think we just got to push for Poch now. If you can't get him, see how Carrick, hopefully we can still make top four with Carrick, play aggressive football, try and go on this Champions League run, then hand over the reins. Or look for a better interim option than some of the ones that I've seen.
Very good. Yeah, good that we could see some changes last night, and obviously optimism now. We're out of the group. We found out obviously later in the evening we've won the group, so you can take the foot off, maybe rest some players in that last game against Young Boys. So good stuff all in all, and nice to have a bit of a positive feeling as well. It does, there was no terrible performances, no one getting sent off, no one getting injured. Good stuff from Manchester United, and obviously something we've all needed as United fans, a bit of optimism around the club again. Thank you very much, Abdul, for joining us. Thank you at home. Let us know your thoughts. If we've missed anyone out, if someone went under the radar with their performance last night, slightly better from United, especially in that second half, much more dangerous. And again, surprisingly, with only 40 hours to play with, some changes to tactics as well. Not radical, obviously, not enough time, but something to look forward to, hopefully under Michael Carrick. Thank you very much for joining us. Subscribe if you aren't already. We'll see you in a bit.